This is the Last 10 Podcast with Brenda Lomelli, episode 99.
You're killing it in your business and career. You're growing professionally and personally. You're smashing through your goals. But those weight loss goals are a whole different story. This is the Last 10 Podcast, a show to help you lose that last 10 pounds and stay at your ideal weight for good. Balancing all aspects of professional and personal life is tough, but here you're putting yourself at the number one priority. Here's your host, a lady boss and nutritionist who prides herself on working with the unstoppable woman, Brenda Lomelli.
Hey, gorgeous. Happy Monday. Welcome back to the podcast. I am so excited to be here with you this week. How's your month going? How's your February going? How's your 2019 going? I am pretty excited about this year. I am now 31 weeks pregnant, so it's crazy. I was thinking about this last week. So a little bit of a baby update, a bump date, they call it. I was thinking about it last week and oh my gosh, assuming that she comes on her due date, which apparently only 5% of babies do, but assuming she does, it is only 9 weeks away. Kind of blows my mind. Like it's right around the corner. So I can't wait to meet her. I can't wait to see her little face and I can't wait to hold her. So I am doing that. And in preparation, I'm recording actually 2 to 3 podcast episodes a week so that I can still deliver weekly value to you here on the podcast, but also take a little bit of time to just adjust to the change and really spend time with her and have that be my focus for a while. And of course, still taking care of my lovely clients. But as far as the podcast, I am doubling up on recording, sometimes tripling up, and making sure that I am still committed to delivering value for you here each week. What else can I tell you? I think that's kind of it for a little bit of a bump date. Feeling pretty good. No back pain, although acid reflux is definitely a real thing. Just kind of feels like I have a huge rock in my throat all day long. For anyone who's experienced that, you know what I'm talking about. But anyways, let's jump into this week's topic. And this week I want to talk about overeating on the weekends and just like making decisions on the weekends that sabotage your results really from whatever you've done the entire week. This is a cycle and a habit pattern that I see so much coming up for people and that I really used to struggle with. Let me tell you what I used to do, and you can probably relate. I would eat super quote unquote healthy and not overeat and make great decisions, basically Monday through Thursday night-ish, maybe also Friday morning. But I can think about this time. I can remember where I was working. I remember my coworkers. Friday at lunch, that's kind of when it all went out the window. Everyone would be in that Friday kind of mood and like, hey, let's go get some lunch. And sometimes even if I had lunch, which I usually did because I was planning on, following through on the plans I had made and eating healthy and all of that. But I started thinking, it's Friday. Let me go and enjoy with my coworkers. And so that's usually when it started. Usually it'd be Friday at lunch. I'd go and definitely not make the best choices and usually overeat. And I remember for the most part, I would come back from lunch just feeling so full in my scrubs, like my scrubs felt tight now. And then just basically doing that all for the rest of the weekend. And of course, when you do that, here's the frustrating thing about this specific pattern that many, many women fall into. It's almost like a trap you kind of fall into. The thing about it that's so frustrating is that you do feel like you're putting in so much effort because you are. Monday through Friday or Monday through Thursday, whatever it is for you, you are putting in a lot of effort. You are planning your meals. Maybe you're even meal prepping, or maybe anytime you do go out, you do, are very deliberate about your choices and you're, you're saying no to this and saying no to that. And you are putting in effort. But then come Friday, it's like all of that goes out the window. And there's kind of like two different categories that people fall into typically here. One category is where you're really just feeling frustrated and it feels like, I don't understand why I'm not getting results. I'm like working really hard, but still I'm not seeing any weight loss. And so that's kind of like the confusion category and the stuckness category, where you're almost not even aware of what you're doing. And it just can feel very frustrating because all you're seeing is I'm putting in effort and I'm not getting results. That's one category. The other category is of women who are in this pattern of like eating healthy, maybe Monday through Thursday or Monday through Friday, and following their plan and being consistent. And then they are actually very aware of, oh my gosh, and then the weekend comes and I just like throw it out the window and I say F it and I just start eating everything. Maybe not everything, but definitely overeating or over drinking. And I say I'm only going to have, 1 or 2 glasses of wine and I end up having 4. And then I say I'm only going to have drinks on Friday, but then I have drinks on Saturday as well. And in the second category, they're very aware of the overeating that is happening on the weekends, but there is still the frustration because they're wanting to change it and feeling like, how do I change it? I would say that that's really, if you're overeating on the weekends, you fall under one of those two umbrellas. Like you're either just totally unaware and just feeling frustrated and you're not really seeing that big part of the pattern where it's like, well, of course you're not seeing results because you're overeating essentially Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, or maybe Saturday and Sunday. Or you're in the second group where you are seeing it and it's very clear to you and you're thinking, well, of course I'm not getting results because as soon as the weekend comes, I'm just like total sabotage city. But you do feel frustrated and stuck in the sense that even though you see it, you just feel like you can't change it. And even though you see it and you tell yourself, I'm not going to do that this weekend, like, okay, that's going to be the last weekend I do that. Even though you tell yourself that and you plan that this weekend's going to be a weekend of great eating, you're not going to overeat. You're maybe just going to have one joy eat or one planned dessert or a couple of drinks. You end up going way overboard and just really not following through on your plan, even though you clearly are seeing the cycle that you're in. So those are the two categories. Kind of think about where you fall under, maybe a little bit of both. But for the most part, regardless of which category you're in, there is a great sense of frustration and almost it's like exhaustion because there's some burnout there because you are putting effort. Regardless of which of these two categories or umbrellas you fall under, you are putting in effort, but then totally sabotaging by overeating on the weekends. So if you are listening right now and you're thinking and you're just starting to see, oh yeah, I hadn't really been aware, but I'm really seeing what you're saying, Brenda. I am overdoing it on the weekends. I'm not being consistent. I'm not following through. I'm like totally just throwing in the towel and being completely inconsistent and not paying attention. And if you're listening and you're just really noticing that, then you really are in the right place, right? You're listening to this podcast. We're going to talk about that. I want to make sure that you really understand what you're going to need to do in order to change it. And if you're in this other category of like, yes, I totally see it. I've been trying to change it. I don't understand how I'm going to change it. No matter what I say, okay, this time really, I'm not going to overdo it this weekend. And then every time I end up overdoing it, I end up on Monday stepping on the scale and like just really being pissed off at myself because here it is yet again, another weekend that I overdid it. So here's one of the first things that I want you to see. What most people want to do is come Monday, they step on the scale, and even though they had been seeing some results earlier in the week, right, during the weekday, they step on the scale on Monday after the weekend, and they're up a couple pounds, and you feel bloated and your pants feel tight and you just like get upset with yourself and you're just frustrated that you did it yet again. I overate, I blew it. I totally sabotaged. I went to that birthday party. I said I wasn't going to have, treats or sugar or drinks, and I ended up having all of them. I said I wasn't going to have any, and I ended up having everything. I ended up having the cake and 3 beers and a hot dog and some chips on the side. This really is so common. I'm not exaggerating at all. And this was me for basically like 2 decades. It was the weekends that really kept me stuck and sabotaging, and it was exhausting. And I really just got to the point where I just felt so burnt out. Like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. It's exhausting. I'm putting in so much effort and then sabotaging all my effort on the weekends and then not seeing any results. So here's what I want to tell you. What most people want to do is just kind of put that weekend that just happened behind them and like not really look at it and almost kind of like sweep it under the rug and just come to this new week and say, okay, now I'm really going to do it. Now I'm really going to commit. Now I'm really going to be consistent. Now I'm really not going to have sugar. Now I'm really not going to have wine. Now I'm really going to be 100% committed no matter what for like the entire next, month or year. That just doesn't work. And let me tell you, if you feel like, I don't believe you, Brenda, let me just keep doing this, just look at it because that's probably what you've been doing and it hasn't worked. So if you notice yourself that on Mondays, what you want to do is just show up to Monday and be like, okay, I'm really going to do this. This time I'm really serious. I'm really going to start fresh. I'm going to start my diet on Monday. I'm going to really be committed on Monday. Because think about it. You probably did that the last week on Monday, and then the week before that on Monday, and the week before that on Monday, right? Like as you're listening, you're probably even shaking your head like, oh yeah, that's right. I did say that last Monday. Really, I want you to see like this visual of just wanting to just sweep that all under the rug and just not even look at what happened. One of the things I tell my clients is like, what we need to do is actually very much on purpose, look at the moments when you did not follow through, when you overate, and look at it instead of sweeping it under the rug, which is, is just this other way of saying like you hide it and just don't want to look at it. You do the complete opposite. You want to look at it because what this means is like there's something there for you to learn and to figure out. So this is the first thing that I'm going to recommend for you. If you are someone that overeats on the weekends, what you need to do is you actually need to start writing down what you are eating on the weekends. So literally this coming Thursday or Friday, when you make that first choice of, ordering the burger and the fries, even though you didn't plan to, or having a glass of wine out, just pick a day, whether you start on Thursday or Friday, and tell yourself, okay, I'm going to write down everything I eat this entire weekend. And in fact, I would highly suggest that you do that every weekend from now on until you get this figured out. You're not going to get it figured out by just sweeping it under the rug every weekend and then telling yourself the same thing, which obviously hasn't worked every Monday, which is, okay, now I'm really going to do this. Now I'm going to start fresh. Now I'm really going to start my diet. Now I'm really going to be committed. Because then you're not looking at what's not working to figure it out and learn what there is to learn there and change it. You have to look at it in order to change it. You have to figure it out. You have to understand it in order to change it. That's why sweeping it your entire weekend and your entire weekend of poor choices, that's why sweeping that under the rug just doesn't work, because you'll never look at it. You'll never understand it. So then you can never change it and you'll just keep repeating the same thing. So what you're going to do this upcoming weekend is you're actually going to, you could use your phone. You could use your little notes app on your phone. You could email it to yourself. So you could have like an email open and just like email to yourself. Or you could have like this little notepad in your purse. It doesn't matter. Just pick your poison, pick whatever method or tool you want to use, but have a way that you're going to write down everything you eat this upcoming weekend and then every weekend until you change this and figure it out. The reason this is important is because, and by the way, let me tell you this. When people start writing down what their food choices are, most of us are tempted to only write it down when it is a great choice that we think looks awesome and that we think is a good choice. And then as soon as you start making choices that aren't what you planned and aren't what you're supposed to be doing to create the results you want, then you stop writing, then you stop tracking because we don't want to look at it. That is what a lot of this boils down to. We don't want to look at what's not working. But what I think you really need to take away from this podcast is you need to look at what's not working. So when you are writing down what you're eating all week, and you are tempted to not write something down or to stop writing things down because you're like, oh, F it, I already messed up. This whole weekend is ruined. That moment when you're tempted to stop tracking and stop documenting what you're eating is exactly when you need to start. Because remember, you need to look at it. You need to see it in order to understand it. And you need to understand it in order to change it. Looking away and not looking at it and sweeping it under the rug will keep you stuck perpetually. So make that commitment. If you are listening to this podcast and you are someone who's one of your main patterns that continues to keep you stuck is that you are overeating, overdoing it on the weekends, and you are not being consistent, et cetera, on the weekends, that's when you overeat and that's when you keep yourself stuck at a weight that you don't want to be at. Make a commitment to yourself that you are going to write down what you are eating, no matter what you choose to eat, no matter what it is, even if it's something like, even if it's something that you're thinking is ridiculous, like a bucket full of chocolate chip cookie dough. If you eat that and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't even write this down because I'm so embarrassed, just write it down. You need to look at it. We need to stop avoiding looking at what's not working. You need to look at it to understand it so then you can change it. That's like the homework. That's the assignment that I'm going to give you. That's the commitment that you need to make. Now, for you, really just be honest with yourself. Do I start kind of throwing my plan out the window on Thursdays? Do I start on Friday? And make that the day that you start writing down what you eat. Now, when you start writing down what you eat, what you're going to find is that you're going to really start to be aware of what your choices are and what you're eating, what you're actually eating. That's the first step of this, is to just be so clear on the choices you're making and to create a next level of awareness to just start to see it, right? That's the first step. The next thing you're going to do is that this is what I want to suggest to you. Each time that you eat something that you didn't plan to have or that completely is not aligned with your goals, it's so obvious for you that it's not going to create the result that you want. Make a little note under there. And here's the question you're going to ask yourself. Why did I make this choice? Why did I choose to eat or drink this thing? And what that's going to do is that you're going to start to understand the reasons that you give yourself for not following through, for not being consistent, for not being committed. You might start to see things like, I'm going to think back to myself and I'll use a personal example. On Fridays for lunch with my coworkers, if I was writing down that, I'm trying to remember the name of the burger spot we would go. But at the time I was working right around USC, downtown LA. In that area, there was a burger spot. I just can't remember the name, but that's okay. It was delicious. And usually I would have my lunch, like I said, but they'd be like, hey, it's Friday. Let's all go to lunch. And I love my coworkers. Some of the thoughts were even like, I love my coworkers. I want to hang out with them. I want to have a good time. It's Friday. It's been a rough week. All those kinds of thoughts would be like the little notes I would take in my notebook if I had been writing things down. I wasn't, because, hey, I didn't have an awesome podcast like this where someone was teaching me how to figure out why I kept making the same frustrating choices over and over and over again. I was baffled. Like, okay, I am a smart person. Why do I keep repeating the same stuff that isn't working? I was like completely baffled by this. So if this was the case and I had these tools and I'm teaching you and these strategies, that's what I would have done. I would have written down, okay, Friday, lunch, burger and fries. And then under that, I would write down, what are some of the reasons I decided to make this choice? Well, I was wanting to have a good time with my coworkers. It sounded like fun. The burgers at the spot are really good, right? I would make those notes. As I'm doing that, again, what you're doing is you're just increasing the awareness, you're increasing your understanding. And I could really break it down, but most important of all, the big thing that's happening is that instead of avoiding looking at what's not working, you actually are looking at what's not working. Simply by the fact that you're looking at it, you're going to understand it better. And then you're going to start to be able to change it. And that's one of the things I really teach my clients. Like, we get really specific, not only on understanding and how to, I have a specific formula for how to understand it, but then also specific formula and steps for how to change those old habits. But here on the podcast, like, I just want to share with you how to just at least start looking at it. And I want you to be aware that one of the things you're doing that's not working is not wanting to look at it. In fact, I sometimes have clients when they first start working with me, because one of the things we do in my program is there is a daily process for accountability, right? Where my clients are tracking what their weight is, what they're eating, their fullness levels, and they're also starting to use this process to start to identify like what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and really be deliberate with their actions and their choices. So what happens when sometimes when I have new clients working that start in my program and that start to work with me is that, I'll see that they haven't tracked anything for, they'll kind of go MIA on like that first weekend. And if I ask like, why didn't you write down like what your food was, etc., like the daily things that they're supposed to be accountable for and consistent with, very, very often the answer is like, well, I wasn't doing well, so I just figured I didn't want to write it. Like sometimes even they're feeling embarrassed, etc., etc. I am telling you, and I tell my clients, that is exactly when you need to write it, when it's not perfect, when it wasn't what you meant for it to be, because you need to look at it. You need to understand it. Let me give you an example outside of weight loss. In my business, just like you have your certain weight loss goals, in my business, I have certain goals, revenue goals, growth goals, etc. What if, as a business owner, if there was a part of my business that wasn't working and I was very aware of it, and I just didn't look at it because I didn't want to. I didn't want to look at what's not working. That would seriously be like business homicide, right? Because as a business owner, it totally makes sense. And you can probably clearly see this as an analogy in a different realm that doesn't have to do with eating or weight loss. As a business owner, it's like, duh, right? If something's not working, and I want my business to continue growing and being profitable and thriving, I for sure am going to go look at that thing. I'm going to go look at it. I'm going to go understand what is happening. And that is what I'm offering for you here. The tactic that I'm giving you is just to start writing down, starting from Thursday or starting from Friday, everything that you're eating. What that's doing is like you are looking at it, my friend. You need to look at it. No more sweeping the whole entire weekend under the rug and then just Monday comes and you don't even want to look at it. You want to sweep it under the rug and you just want to say, okay, this time I'm really going to do it. Those moments where you don't follow through, where you aren't consistent, where you totally make the poorest choices that aren't aligned with your goals, that totally sabotage whatever effort you have been putting into what you're doing, those moments are truly, honestly, I tell my clients and And I really told this to myself. This was a huge, huge mindset shift for me when I stopped being stuck and then actually started just crushing it and creating results with my weight loss. There is this huge shift from looking at that as something kind of dark that this deep, dark thing that you just don't even want to look at and you just want to hide it and sweep it under the rug. And what I say now and what I've told myself is like, those moments are honestly, they are like a gift for you. It is a gift. And I've even said before to my clients, it's like a gift to look at those moments. Like, let's say you planned not to have chips at the Super Bowl party, right? Or whatever party's coming up, maybe a baby shower. Got a little bit of baby shower on the brain because ours is coming up soon. I'm very excited. Maybe it's a baby shower. Maybe it's a Super Bowl party. And you told yourself, I'm not going to graze on the chips. And then you go to the party or the baby shower and you totally graze on the chips. Let me tell you, instead of really looking away from that and wanting to sweep it under the rug and then just go to the next day and say, all right, now I'm really just going to be perfect. There is a gift in that moment for you that I want you to imagine literally a gift box that is wrapped up. It has a bow. You get to open that for yourself. And it is a gift. And I'll explain why. It's a gift because by looking at it, you're going to understand what's not working. So let's go with this whole chips at the party example. Instead of brushing it under the rug and being frustrated with yourself. And now, the one thing I'm not saying is to dwell on these decisions that you've made. It's not about dwelling. It's about looking at them. It's about seeing them instead of avoiding looking at them and understanding, getting curious, understanding. With this example of the chips, let's say you think of it as like, okay, this is a gift. This is an opportunity for me to learn, to understand. Let's say you go and you think back at it and you're like, okay, let me look at this. What was the reason that I gave myself to make that choice, to have those chips? And you might find like, oh, you know what? The reason I started grazing is because I was feeling anxious about being around all these people and like feeling like I didn't know what to say. Bingo. You just learned something new. You just became more aware. You just understood yourself and your own behavior a little bit more. Or maybe it wasn't even like that at all. Maybe it was something different. Like, well, everyone was eating chips. And I felt like if I didn't have some, then I'd be like this weirdo person. I'd be that girl that doesn't eat chips at a party. Okay. That was the reason you gave yourself. And that was the reason you had in the moment for choosing to have the chips. Again, just by looking at it, it's like you're unraveling this thing and understanding it a little bit more. You start to understand your behavior, and then you can actually change it. Or maybe you look at it and you're like, well, the party seemed boring. I just felt like I just needed something to do because everyone there is like so uninteresting and boring and uptight. Okay. Now you're learning a little bit more about yourself and what you were thinking, and then you can start to change it. Or maybe it was something super simple, like maybe it was those cheesy flavored Ruffles, and your thought was like, man, those are my favorite. I love those. You can start to understand, oh, it was just a craving. It was like me thinking about those Ruffles and how much I like them. So what I want you to take away from this podcast and what you're going to start doing if you struggle with overeating on the weekends, it's a very, very simple thing. You're going to start writing down everything you eat. Everything. And anything on your list of things that you have eaten for that weekend, if it is not something that is aligned with your goals, if it is something that is directly going to sabotage what you want, and that we're all so clear with, right? Like if you had planned that you're going to go out and order the roasted chicken and the roasted veggies, something like that, like let's say that's what you planned, and then instead you ordered the lasagna with like, the pasta and the cheese and everything. There's really, honestly, most people know what's going to support the results you want and what's not going to. Anytime you order something that's not in alignment with your goals, that isn't going to create the results you want, answer the question. Why did I make this choice for myself? What are the reasons I gave myself for making this choice? It could be something like, I didn't want to be the girl that ordered a salad at the Italian restaurant. Could be something like, I love lasagna. It looked so good. It might be something like, oh my gosh, I had such a hard week. I totally deserve to eat a lasagna. You'll start to understand your own behavior, and then you can change it. There is no way you cannot change your behavior, especially a habit or a pattern that has been very well rehearsed and has been, an ongoing and old habit and pattern for a long, long time. If something's been an old habit, an existing pattern for you for many, many years, maybe 5 years, 10 years, maybe even 20 or 30 years, it's not going to change by itself. And it's definitely not going to change if you just keep sweeping it under the rug. If you just keep avoiding looking at it. You're going to have to look at it. And so this practice that I'm sharing with you of actually just writing down everything you're eating, and then anything that's not aligned with your goals, like answering the question, what reason did I give myself for making this choice? Why did I make this choice? You will start to understand it better simply by looking at it. This is the habit of actually looking at it instead of avoiding, which is what most people do. I mean, I feel pretty confident saying that probably 9.5 out of 10 women after a weekend of overeating just want to sweep it under the rug and say, okay, I'm going to start fresh this weekend. But then it's almost like Groundhog Day. If you've seen that movie, Groundhog Day is like the same thing repeats itself every day, right? Except this is kind of maybe like Groundhog Week, where it's like the same week repeats itself every week, where Monday through Thursday or Friday, you're eating great. And then on the weekend, starting Thursday or Friday, you are just like total sabotage city. If you don't decide to be deliberate about looking at what's not working and seeing it and just keep hiding it and basically sweeping it under the rug, you're going to keep repeating it. It's going to keep being Groundhog Week, where you just repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And of course, you will never have new breakthroughs to new results. So that is what I have this week for you, my friends. Make that commitment to yourself. If you overeat on the weekends, if that's kind of like when the damage happens, right? Quote unquote damage, start this practice of writing it down. Write down everything you eat and make the notes. Why did I choose that? You're really going to start to understand your own behavior. You're going to start to see what's not working. One more analogy before we go. I was about to wrap up the episode, but I just thought about one more analogy that I think will be brilliant. This is, for example, if you want to change your finances, let's say you've been someone who's been racking up debt, like not managing your money well, not saving. If someone wants to change their financial life and debt and their habits are not to save, et cetera, they're not going to create change by not looking at their bank accounts, by not looking at their credit cards, by not seeing what they're working with, what is happening here, right? They have to go and look at it. They have to go and look at their accounts and see where they're at and understand what's happening. They have to look at it. They're not going to change their financial life by avoiding looking at it. And that's what many of us women, I did that for almost 20 years. And that's what a lot of my clients are doing when they come to me. And that's very likely what a lot of you, my listeners, are doing now, especially if it's on the weekends. Don't not look at it. Start to look at it so that you can change it. And if you find that you are struggling to even look at it, what happens sometimes is like we have so much shame and self-judgment and self-criticism and frustration about even looking at what we're doing. If you feel that way, I really do recommend that you have a call with me and we can talk about my program, because that's exactly the kind of thing that I help my clients work through. It's like really even getting to the point where they really can look at it, they really will understand it and then change it. One thing that you'll notice once you start making little notes about what you're using as reasons to eat something that really is not going to create the results for you is that a lot of it, especially on the weekends, has to do with us giving food the job of entertaining us, the job of providing relief and relaxation, or the job of being like one of our sole sources of pleasure and joy and those things. So you're going to start to see a lot of that. And one of the things I teach my clients is like how to actually not make food the only thing in our lives that we give those jobs to, the jobs of comfort, relief, relaxation, entertainment, joy, pleasure. There are so many other sources of those things that we could have in our lives, as long as you are thinking of food and eating as the source of those things, and even things like connection, right? Like if that's the only way that you feel like you can connect with others, then you're gonna keep going back to just overeating happening on the weekends. That's a lot of why people overeat on the weekends, is because they're seeing food as like the main delegate of, okay, this is how connection happens. This is how entertainment happens on the weekends. This is how fun happens. This is how relaxation happens. And like we give food that job. So that's something that's going to have to change. But again, the purpose of this process is that you just even start to see and understand, and you'll really start to see those patterns come up for you. Are a lot of your reasons because food is entertainment, food is connection, food is pleasure, food is joy? Then you have to see that. You'll never see that if you don't look at it. Also, if you're feeling like you get to the point where you're writing down all the stuff, but every weekend what you find is that you're just writing down all the stuff, but you're not making any change. What that tells me also is that you're needing some support in order to create that change, in order to really understand like how to take what you're seeing and understanding and then actually change it. So my friend, if you are interested in working with me directly, I would love to support you in your goals. Take what you learned in this podcast, take action from it. Remember, what creates results is taking action. You are not going to create results by continuing to do the same thing and continuing to try and use your same approach. It hasn't been working. You need to try something new. You need to try a new action. All right, my friends, that is what I have for you today. For anyone that struggles with overeating, just being on repeat every weekend, it is exhausting. You don't have to keep exhausting yourself. I am so excited every week to share here strategies and insights so that you can start to change this weight struggle for yourself, be able to change it and get all the way to your goal, and really this part of your life be something that you are able to create exactly the results that you want, that no longer feels like a struggle, and even can be a part of your life that you love. Have an amazing, amazing week, and see you here next week for episode 100 of the podcast.
This has been the Last 10 Podcast. Now we know when you take the best care of yourself and feel amazing at your ideal weight, you'll give nothing but your best. Maximize your creativity, have mental clarity, and show up with true boss confidence in your business and career. Get your free guide on how to lose the final 10 at www.brendalomelli.com.